Hello, my name is Daniel. I am 27 years old and I come from Argentina. 5 months ago, I couldn't speak English at all, not even one simple sentence without stopping and thinking. Every time I tried to speak, my mind went blank. I felt nervous, confused, and a little embarrassed. Maybe you know this feeling too. But today, everything is different. Today, I can speak English with confidence. I can express my thoughts, share my ideas, and understand other people much better. And in this video, I want to show you exactly how I did it step by step. No magic, no talent, just a simple system that works. Because this is not only my story, this can be your story too. And before we continue, write in the comments right now, where are you watching this video from? Which country and which city? Why are you learning English? The failure that started it all. For many years, I had one clear dream: to work as a developer in an international company. I really believed in this goal. I spent a lot of time studying. I improved my coding skills every day. I worked late at night and early in the morning. I did everything I could to become better. One day, something amazing happened. I received an email. It said, "You are invited to an interview." I felt excited and proud. I started imagining a new life, a good salary, a strong team, and big opportunities. Then the interview began. There were 3 people on the screen. All of them were native English speakers. They started talking, and suddenly everything felt too fast. Their words mixed together. I tried to understand, but I couldn't. Then they asked me a simple question. "Can you introduce yourself?" And in that moment, I froze. I knew exactly what to say in my head, but I couldn't say it out loud. My words were broken. My voice was not confident. I said something like, uh, e coding, many projects. I am good. Then there was silence. That silence felt very heavy. I knew what it meant. I failed. Not because I didn't know my job, but because I couldn't speak English. That day changed my life forever. That day, after the interview, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. I sat alone and replayed everything in my head again and again. And then I understood one simple but powerful truth. English is not just a skill, it is a door to better jobs, better people, and a better life. And at that moment, I realized something painful. I was standing in front of that door, but I didn't have the key. Not because I was not smart, not because I was not hardworking, but because I didn't have the language. That night, I made a very clear decision. No more excuses, no more waiting. I will learn English. I will do it fast, and I will do it in a different way. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I will not stay the same person anymore. Before this moment, I had already tried to learn English many times. I thought I was doing everything correctly. I paid for online courses, watched lessons, and followed teachers step by step. I also spent a lot of time memorizing new words and repeating grammar rules. It felt like I was making progress, but after a few months, I faced a hard truth. When I tried to speak, I still couldn't do it. My sentences were slow and broken. I knew many words, but I didn't know how to use them in real conversations. I had knowledge, but I didn't have a real skill. That's when I started to understand what the problem was. Learning words is not the same as speaking. Studying grammar does not automatically make you fluent. And just listening or reading without practice does not work. I realized that I needed something different. Not more information, but a system that helps you actually speak. So I decided to create my own method. At the beginning of my journey, I made the same mistake that many beginners make. I believed that I needed to learn more words. I thought that if I knew enough vocabulary, I would be able to speak. It sounded logical, so I followed this idea for a long time. But I was wrong. The truth was simple. I already knew many English words. I had learned them in school and from courses. The real problem was different. I did not know how to use these words in real situations. When I tried to speak, my brain was slow. I stopped, translated, and lost my confidence. So I changed my approach. For the first 15 days, I made a strict rule. I would not learn any new words, not even one. Instead, I focused on training my brain to use the words I already knew. I wanted to build speed, confidence, and automatic speaking. This small change became the foundation of everything that came next. Step 1. Survival sentences. The first thing I did was very simple but very powerful. I sat down and thought about my daily life. I asked myself, what do I really need to say in English every day? Not difficult sentences, not academic language, just simple and useful phrases. Then I wrote a list of 50 basic sentences. These were sentences for real situations like, how are you? Can you repeat that? I don't understand as I need help, and other simple expressions that people use all the time. Every morning I practiced these sentences. I did not just read them once. I repeated each sentence many times, slowly and clearly. I tried to pronounce every word correctly and speak without stopping. I did this every day. At first it felt difficult and a bit boring. But after a few days, something changed. These sentences became natural. I did not need to think anymore. I could say them automatically, without translating in my head. This gave me my first real confidence in speaking English. Step 2. Talking to myself. The second step was very simple, but at the same time, it felt strange in the beginning. I started talking to myself in English. There was no teacher, no partner, and no one to listen to me. It was just me and my voice. At first, I felt a little uncomfortable. It even felt a bit silly. But I decided to continue because I understood that this was a safe way to practice. No one could judge me. No one could correct me. I was free to speak as much as I wanted. I began to describe everything I was doing during the day. When I was cooking, I said, I am cooking now. I am making food. When I was walking, I said, I am walking outside. The weather is cold. I described simple actions and situations around me. This helped my brain get used to English. I stopped being afraid of speaking. I started forming sentences faster and more naturally. It was not perfect, but it was real practice. And that is what I needed most. Step 3. Copy real speech. The third step was one of the most important parts of my learning. Every day I chose 5 sentences from real English. I did not use textbook examples. I took sentences from movies, YouTube videos, and podcasts. I wanted to hear how real people speak in everyday life. Then I practiced these sentences very carefully. I did not just read them. I listened to the original speaker and tried to copy everything. I repeated each sentence many times with the same speed, the same tone, and the same emotion. If the speaker sounded relaxed, I tried to sound relaxed. If they spoke fast, I followed their rhythm. At first it was difficult. My pronunciation was not clear and I could not match the speed. But I continued every day. Slowly, my mouth got used to English sounds. After some time, I noticed real progress. My pronunciation became clearer. My speech sounded more natural. and I felt more confident when speaking. After 15 days of daily practice, I started to notice real changes. At first, the progress was small, but then it became very clear. Something in my mind began to work differently. The biggest change was that I stopped translating every sentence in my head. Before, I always thought in my native language first and then tried to translate into English. This made me slow and nervous. But now, simple phrases came to me directly in English. I also began to speak faster. My sentences were still simple, but I did not need to stop all the time. Words came more naturally, and I could express basic ideas without long pauses. Another important change was confidence. I was not afraid to speak anymore. I understood that I could actually use English, even if it was not perfect. These 15 days gave me a strong foundation, but I also knew that this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey. After the first 15 days, I understood that I had built a good base. I could say simple sentences, and I felt more comfortable. But I also knew that this was not enough. My goal was not just to speak small phrases. I wanted real fluency. Fluency means more than knowing words. It means speaking without long pauses. It means understanding people and answering naturally. It means having real conversations, not just repeating learned sentences. So I decided to change my focus. Before, I was training basic speaking. Now I needed to train real communication. I wanted my English to become faster, smoother, and more flexible. I understood that I needed more practice, but not random practice. I needed a clear system that would push me to think in English and react quickly. This was the moment when my learning became more serious. I stopped being a beginner who learns and became a person who uses the language every day. One of the most effective methods I used was very simple. I started asking myself questions in English every day. The questions were about my real life, so the answers were natural and useful. For example, I asked, "What did I do today?" At first, my answers were very short. I said, "I worked." But I did not stop there. I pushed myself to say more. I added details step by step. I said, "I worked on a project." Then I continued. "I worked on a project for 3 hours. After that, I added more. I worked on a project for 3 hours and then I took a break." This method helped me build longer sentences. It also trained my brain to react faster. I stopped thinking too much and started speaking more naturally. Day by day, my answers became clearer, longer, and more confident. Another method that helped me a lot was the echo technique. It is simple but very powerful if you do it every day. First, I listened to native speakers. I used videos, podcasts, and short clips where people speak naturally. Then I paused after each sentence. I did not continue listening right away. I stopped and repeated the sentence out loud. But I did not just repeat the words. I tried to copy everything exactly: the pronunciation, the speed, and the rhythm of the speaker. At the beginning, it was difficult. I could not match the sound, and my speech felt slow and unnatural. But I kept practicing every day, even when it was not perfect. After a few weeks, I noticed a big change. My accent became clearer, my pronunciation improved, and my speech started to sound more natural. I felt more comfortable when speaking, and people understood me better. At some point, I understood that memorizing words one by one was not effective. I could remember them for a short time, but then I forgot them quickly. So I changed my approach and started learning words through small stories. Every day, I chose a few new words, usually around 5. Then I created a simple story using all of them. The story did not need to be perfect or long. It just needed to be clear and easy to remember. For example, I took the words party, surprise, and invitation. Then I made a short story. I got an invitation to a party. When I arrived, it was a surprise. I read the story many times and said it out loud. This method helped me remember words much better. I did not learn them separately. I learned them in context, inside real sentences. Because of this, I could use them naturally when I spoke. One of the most important changes I made was stopping translation. Before, I always thought in my native language and then tried to translate everything into English. This made me slow and unsure. So I decided to train my brain to think directly in English. I started with simple things. I described everything around me. When I walked outside, I thought, the sky is blue, the weather is cold, I see people walking. These were easy sentences, but they helped my brain get used to English. I also asked myself questions during the day. For example, what am I doing now? And then I answered, I am working, I am drinking coffee, I am sitting at my desk. This made my thinking more active. Every evening, I wrote a short journal in English. At first, it was very simple, but over time, it became more natural. Step by step, English became part of my daily thinking. At some point, I understood that methods are important, but discipline is even more important. So I created one simple rule for myself. I must speak English every day for at least 2 hours. This was not optional. It was a rule that I had to follow no matter what. Sometimes I did not have anyone to speak with, but that was not a problem. I spoke to myself, just like before. I described my actions, asked questions, and answered them. I practiced while cooking, walking, or doing simple daily tasks. There were days when I felt tired or lazy. I wanted to skip practice. But I reminded myself why I started. I knew that if I stopped, I would lose progress. This rule helped me build consistency. Even when my practice was not perfect, I was still moving forward. And over time, this daily effort made a huge difference in my speaking ability. At this stage, I already felt more confident when speaking English. I could build sentences and express my ideas. But I noticed one problem. My speech still sounded unnatural, like something from a textbook. It was correct, but not real. So I set a new goal. I wanted to sound like a real person, not like a student. I wanted my English to be smooth, natural, and easy to understand. This was the next step in my journey. At this stage, I began to notice something very important. The English I learned in school was not the same as the English people use in real life. In textbooks, everything looked clean and simple. But when I listened to real conversations, people spoke differently. For example, I learned to say, I am learning English for 5 months, but native speakers say, I have been learning English for 5 months. This small difference changed how natural the sentence sounds. I understood that if I want to sound real, I need to learn from real speech, not only from books. So I started paying attention to how people actually talk. I listened carefully and asked myself why they use certain forms. I wrote down useful sentence structures and tried to use them in my own speech. Step by step, my English became more natural and closer to real communication. Shadowing became one of the most powerful techniques in my learning process. The idea is simple. I listened to a native speaker and repeated what they said almost at the same time. It was like being a mirror. I did not wait until the sentence finished. I tried to follow the speaker in real time. At first, it was very difficult. I could not keep up with the speed, and I made many mistakes. My pronunciation was not clear, and my rhythm was not correct. But I did not stop. I practiced every day, even if it felt uncomfortable. Slowly, my brain and my mouth started to work together better. I began to feel the natural rhythm of English. My pronunciation improved, and my speech sounded smoother. This method also helped my confidence. I was no longer afraid of speaking fast. I felt more natural and more relaxed when I used English. Watching movies helped me a lot, but I did not watch them in a passive way. Before, I used to just sit and enjoy the film. I listened, but I did not practice. This did not improve my English much, so I changed my approach and started watching actively. I chose simple movies or short videos with subtitles. This helped me understand what was happening. But the most important part was what I did next. I did not let the video play without control. I paused after sentences. I repeated what I heard. I tried to copy the pronunciation, the tone, and the rhythm of the speakers. Sometimes I repeated the same sentence many times until it sounded better. This took more time, but it was much more effective. I was not just watching, I was training. Because of this method, I improved my listening and speaking at the same time. At some point in my journey, I understood that my biggest problem was not vocabulary or grammar. It was fear. I was afraid of making mistakes. I thought people would judge me or laugh at me if I spoke incorrectly. Because of this, I avoided real conversations. But then, I realized something important. Mistakes do not matter as much as we think. Most people are not judging you. They are trying to understand you, and in many cases, they respect you for trying to speak their language. This changed my mindset. I decided that making mistakes is part of learning. If I do not speak, I will never improve. So I started to use English with real people. I spoke in simple conversations, asked questions, and shared my thoughts. At first, it was uncomfortable. But step by step, my fear became smaller, and my confidence started to grow. After some time, I understood that practicing alone was not enough. I needed real conversations with other people. So I decided to join online speaking groups where people from different countries meet to practice English together. At the beginning, I felt very nervous. My heart was beating fast, and I was afraid to speak. I worried that I would not understand others or that I would make mistakes. Sometimes I stayed quiet and just listened, but I did not give up. I joined these groups again and again. Slowly, I started to speak more. I answered simple questions, shared small ideas, and tried to be part of the conversation. After some time, I felt more comfortable. Speaking became easier, and I stopped worrying so much. Then something changed again. I became more confident. I could speak longer, understand better, and enjoy the process. Practicing with others made a huge difference in my progress. One day, something incredible happened. It was not planned, and I did not expect it. I was speaking English, just like I did every day. But this time, it felt completely different. I noticed that I was not thinking about every word. I was not translating from my native language. The sentences came naturally, without effort. I could express my ideas clearly and quickly. There was no fear in my voice. I was not worried about mistakes. I was focused on the conversation, not on the language. It felt smooth and easy, like I was finally using English instead of fighting with it. For the first time, I experienced real flow. My brain and my speech were working together. I understood others, and they understood me. At that moment, I realized that all my practice was working. This was the result I had been waiting for. After some time, I decided to try again. I applied for a job in a similar international company. It was almost the same situation as before, but this time I felt different inside. I was not the same person who failed the first interview. When the interview started, I was still a little nervous, but I did not panic. I listened carefully, understood the questions, and answered step by step. I spoke clearly and did not rush. Even if I was not perfect, I kept talking with confidence. I was not afraid of making mistakes anymore. I focused on communication, not perfection. I explained my experience, my projects, and my skills in a calm and natural way. The conversation felt smooth. I could see that the interviewers understood me and were interested in what I was saying. And this time, everything changed. A few days later, I got the message. I got the job. After I got the job, many things in my life started to change. I had a new salary, better than before, and I could finally feel more stable and confident about my future. New opportunities opened for me. I met new people, worked on interesting projects, and became part of an international environment. But when I looked deeper, I understood something very important. The biggest change was not the job or the money. The biggest change was inside me. I was not the same person anymore. Before, I was unsure, afraid to speak, and full of doubt. Now I felt stronger, more confident, and more open to new challenges. I trusted myself more. Learning English was not only about language. It changed how I think, how I act, and how I see my future. This was the real result of my journey. Here is what really matters. After all this time, I understood that learning English is not only about methods. It is about how you think, how you practice, and how consistent you are. First, mindset is everything. If you tell yourself, "I can't do this," then you will stop before you even start. But if you say, "I will learn this," your brain starts looking for solutions. Your mindset decides your direction. I changed the way I spoke to myself, and this changed my results. Second, surround yourself with English. You do not need to move to another country. You can create an English environment around you. Change your phone language to English. Watch videos, movies, and YouTube in English. Listen to podcasts or music every day. The more English you see and hear, the more natural it becomes for you. Third, speak without fear. Many people wait until they feel ready, but this moment never comes. You must start speaking now. Mistakes are not a problem. In fact, mistakes mean that you are learning. Every mistake brings you one step closer to fluency. Fourth, practice active listening. Do not just hear English in the background. Pay attention. Pause. Repeat what you hear. Try to copy pronunciation and rhythm. This will train your ears and your speaking at the same time. Fifth, learn in context. Do not try to memorize long lists of words. It does not work well. Instead, learn phrases and sentences. When you see how words are used together, you remember them better and use them more naturally. Sixth, understand that grammar comes from use. You do not need to study grammar rules for hours. You will learn grammar by listening and speaking. When you hear correct sentences many times, your brain starts to understand patterns automatically. Finally, consistency beats everything. You do not need to study for many hours every day. Even 10 or 20 minutes is enough if you do it every day. Small actions, repeated many times, create big results. The key is to never stop. At the end of this journey, I want to tell you something very important. Many people believe that learning English requires expensive courses, perfect conditions, or special talent. But this is not true. You do not need any of these things to succeed. You do not need to spend a lot of money on classes. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment. You do not need to be naturally talented. These are just excuses that stop people from starting. What you really need is much simpler. You need practice. You need discipline. And you need consistency. These three things are enough to change your level completely. Practice means using English every day. Even if it is only for a short time, you must speak, listen, or read. Discipline means doing it even when you do not feel motivated. There will be days when you feel tired or lazy, but you must continue. Consistency means doing small actions again and again without stopping. Now think about your future. Imagine yourself 6 months from now. If you start today and practice every day, your English will be much better. You will speak with more confidence. You will understand more. New opportunities can open for you. But now think about the other option. What happens if you do nothing? If you wait? If you delay? If you make excuses? After 6 months, everything will stay the same. You will still feel stuck. The choice is yours. No one else can make it for you. So start now. Do not wait for tomorrow. Speak English even if it is simple. Listen carefully. Repeat what you hear. Build this habit step by step. And always remember one important idea. The pain of discipline is temporary. It may feel difficult now, but it will pass. The pain of regret is much stronger, and it can stay with you for a long time. Your future depends on what you do today.